They have taken over the city, but the city is refusing to acknowledge it. Now, guys, the gang that I've talked about for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years right now, has been running rampant here in New York City. Now, as far as the violence goes, and that's the gang violence that a lot of us are guessing it's going to come soon, with, attacking other gangs, shooting at cops openly in the street. We haven't gotten to that level yet. But as far as operational wise, they have absolutely taken over the city. Now, I find this interesting, guys, that with Eric Adams being indicted as of right now, somebody brought up a good point. And I found it interesting that there was an article stating that Trinidad Agua is out of control and how they have taken over the city. So, of course, I go looking for the article and I can't find it, because all I keep finding now, even when you type in Trinidad Agua controlling New York City, is Eric Adams articles and how he's being charged with fraud and wire fraud and fraud like bribery. All of this nonsense, which means nothing to the actual New Yorker. Whatever Eric Adams did not harm New Yorkers. And not even financially, because financially, who's ruining the city are the illegal immigrants that are here. But they try to shift blame now, and they're shifting their focus on Eric Adams. Notice, guys, how with Eric Adams, when he went to the DNC, they snubbed him. He was going down there to talk and endorse her, which he had already did when she announced her run for presidency. But I found it interesting, when he got there, they snubbed him and he couldn't talk. And he wasn't allowed to talk, actually. So now looking back on it, you're like, they knew back then. They knew back then all of the corrupt nonsense that he had going on. And he was so radioactive back then, he didn't even know that he was radioactive. And now it all makes sense when they drop these charges. Again, I do think a lot of these charges are bullshit. Nonetheless, they knew ahead of time that this man was radioactive. So, of course, with the Eric Adams nonsense, the Trinidad Agua problem is sort of going under the radar for now, at least for the rest of America. For those of us that live here, we see this shit on a day-to-day basis. So they are, guys, and I saw this the other day with my own two eyes. I'm walking, I do my walks, my rucks, if you will, my 50-pound pack. At that day, it was 30 pounds or whatever it was. I took the bricks out. So I'm walking around, and I see these guys sitting across the street from the McDonald's on 181st Street. The McDonald's is on Broadway and 181st Street. And I see these guys sitting there for the last few months. So I look at these guys, I'm looking at these dudes, I'm like, these are not delivery guys. And then I started noticing a shift in who was sitting there. And I'm like, oh, drug dealers. But no evidence. So a couple more months passed by, and just about 2-3 days ago, I walked past them, and they're sitting there with a stack of money in hand, and a guy had a bag of what probably, I'm guessing, was weed in those little film bottles, the see-through ones. And I'm staring right at him as I'm walking by. I'm like, and he's pulling it out. No, he's putting it in a Grubhub bag, the food delivery bags. All right. So now I sort of knew that was the deal, but I saw it with my own two eyes. Reports now are coming out that they're doing the same thing on Randall's Island. So now Randall's Island is one of the bigger hubs of migrant shelters. And they're sneaking in weapons and drugs into that shelter there. The crazy thing is they should have had metal detectors there, because they had metal detectors for NAD psych patients that used to stay in that facility. That facility had a bunch of psych crazy dudes there. Short story, when I was an EMT 20-something years ago, 25 years ago, when I was an EMT, we had a run on Randall's Island in that facility. And that facility had all the crazy homeless dudes there. And there was a guy there who was still in his MTA uniform. He wasn't working the MTA anymore, but he was just sitting there staring into nothing. And I remember walking past him, turning to my partner going, I do not want to be that guy. Going crazy and still wearing my uniform? Absolutely not. Anyway, fast forward 25 years later, now that facility belongs entirely to migrants. But in that facility, they had metal detectors to make sure people, the psych patients, didn't come off the street with a weapon. The same should hold true, or should be done, for the migrants, but it's not. Because as I said, they're moving weapons and drugs around the city in the food delivery bags, those big square bags that are on their back. That's what they're moving through. So their operation, guys, is growing underneath the city's nose, or rather than NYPD's nose. Now, NYPD knows this because I've spoken to a couple of guys, and they have told me the ins and outs of the operation. And this is beat cops. This is not even like detectives or anybody in the special unit. Beat cops know this shit, and the city's doing nothing about it. In fact, the city has what you would call car stops throughout the city, trying to get rid of paper plates, trying to make sure people's paperwork are squared away in their vehicles, but they're allowing drugs, guns, and trafficking, sex trafficking, to run around this city unchecked. But let's pull over people because, oh, they got paper tags. Let's pull people over, oh, because he made a left turn on this signal. Or, oh, he didn't have a seatbelt on. They pulled over a firefighter I know, he's a captain, for not wearing his seatbelt. There were dudes in the street running around with weapons and drugs. Openly, I might add, because yes, it's in the delivery bags. We know who and where they are. I even know where the fuck their points are, where their hangout points are. Me, a fucking fireman, not a cop, not DEA agent, a fucking firefighter, knows where this shit's going on. And these fucking cops are stopping people for bullshit. There's sex trafficking running rampant in Queens right now. For some reason, they're focused on the lower hanging fruit, that is not wearing your fucking seatbelt. Oh, your tag's expired. Your registration expired, excuse me. That's what they're focused on. And yes, I get it, it's from the higher ups, but maybe police should stop taking orders from the higher up and start doing their job, and that's preventing crime, or at the very least quelling it. At the very least. Anyway, the gangs are out of control, guys. NYPD, they said they're focused on them, which is complete bullshit because they're running rampant in the city. At least the article I read, they said they were focusing on it. In another year or so, they're going to get to a level, guys, where they're going to start attacking the average civilian in the street and controlling neighborhoods. Now, they have Jackson Heights, Queens right now. They have that under control. The NYPD will argue, no, they don't. Yes, they do. Because if you allow prostitutions and women to run around, scantily clad, and you got drugs and guns all over the street, you're not controlling shit. They are. Now, the bigger issue is that they are in the shelters as well recruiting. They're actively recruiting in the streets from what I'm being told too. So their numbers are growing. So they are in a sanctuary city, using the sanctuary city status to grow their army. It's not going to be a gang anymore, guys. In the next the next year or two, they're going to be an army, not a gang. They're going to supersede and surpass every other gang in the city if they haven't already. So, yeah, a lot of people you got to leave the city. Leaving the city, guys, is not going to do anything for me when I move to, let's say, PA, or I move upstate New York or in Connecticut. They are expanding into a lot of smaller cities, into smaller towns as well. As reports of them are being seen as far as smaller towns in PA and smaller cities in Connecticut. They are expanding. So running is not the option. Listen, leaving the city, I wouldn't leave the city for the gang problem. I'm leaving the city for other issues that are city issues, which I'll go over in a live stream. But it's nothing serious. It's just I don't want to deal with the city and their nonsense. But the gang issue, running from that, what are you going to run? They're expanding everywhere. They're moving weapons throughout the city. They have a highway, a legitimate highway, 95, going up and down, transporting weapons, drugs, and people from New York, Maryland, D.C. to, not D.C., outside of D.C., excuse me, Virginia and Florida. All right? They're moving a lot of shit and expanding their operations along the eastern seaboard. But somehow, handing people tickets because their registration expired, that's more important. Anyway, guys, this situation is absolutely going to explode. It's going to get out of control. And NYPD does not have a handle on it, nor do they have the balls to do so. Because they keep hiding behind sanctioned city laws and federal laws. Sorry, guys. Sometimes you got to break those laws to protect the people of New York City. It just has to happen. You have to grow a pair of balls and start hammering these dudes out. before civilians start hammering them out. Because you're not going to like it if we have to get involved. Anyway, guys, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching.